everyone, and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode number 59, and today's episode title is The Economic Collapse Warning Signs Are All Around Us. And I'm going to go through all the current news today, and I am still tracking the cyber attacks and putting the maps of the attacks on the people, and if you want to go there, just look for terrorist false flags. If you notice, from May 7th to May 10th, the cyber attacks are increasing. Now, I take snapshots throughout the day, and things are getting a lot worse. Now, I don't know if it's because we're coming towards the weekend, but normally when the government likes to do things, or the FBI or any type of false flag or some type of an event they do, a lot of times it happens right on the weekend, especially if they do something with the stock market or with the banks or something like that. So I just want to see, since they mentioned it from the beginning of this week, and I don't believe that they would have mentioned it if something was not going to happen. Plus, they kind of played it down, even though they mentioned it. There was no alert on the DHS alert system, just like when the Boston bombing happened. There was no alert there either, and they just playing it down, and people are making jokes about it now. And I just want to see how this all plays out, because even on Jimmy Kimmel, they had a video where the anonymous was making the announcement, and he had the mask with the voice, and the mother knocks on the door, and the kid in the mask goes, "Come on, Mom," and it just was a whole joke about it. And it was funny, but I just want to see what happens this week, because everyone's kind of like joking about it and forgetting about it. But I see these cyber hits are getting more and more each day, and there are some companies reporting that they are being attacked. So it's just very interesting. Now, something might not happen at all this week, but I just want to see how this turns out. And usually, whatever they say is the opposite. If they said, "Oh, it's just a little nuisance, we're going to just keep looking at it," it means that something big might be coming. So I'm still tracking it. I'll track it until Friday, and doesn't mean that something can't come after Friday, because that could happen too. I mean, we don't know their timeline. But let's get into the current news today. And basically, with the economy, the Greek unemployment hit a new all-time record high for youths who cannot find work. And basically, they are up to 64.2%. I mean, wow. That is just a lot of young people without work. I mean, we're going over half of all the young people coming into the job market who can't find any work. I mean, that is really, really bad. And this is going to be spreading, and we know it's spreading all over the place. I mean, in Spain, they're hitting close to 50%. And in other countries, Italy, Portugal, we're seeing the same exact thing. Now, here in America, we changed our calculations, so everyone thinks everything is great and there's tons of jobs and we don't have to worry about it. But we know that is not true. Now, we talked about this in the past, about Cyprus being the test, where they've taken the people's money that were in the banks. They're calling it a bail-in. And we discussed the FDIC Bank of England document that was created in December of 2012, and that was the Bible of how this works, and Cyprus was the test. And now it looks like they are spreading this all over the place. The EU gives banks access to savers' accounts. The EU Commission wants future citizens open bank accounts anywhere indefinitely. This measure is especially the large international banks. They have more efficient ways to collect in Europe in case of a crash. The compulsory levy of bank customers. So they are doing this all over, and we see this happening in Ireland, Australia, Canada, Switzerland, America, England, Cyprus, of course. This is happening all over the place. And basically, the Spanish government has evidence that the savers have begun to, bring their money to safety. They're taking the money out of the banks right now because they see what's happening. And again, most of the banks are not going to tell people, "Hey, everyone's taking the money out of the bank. Oh my God, why is this happening?" They're going to stay quiet about this. And I'm sure if you go to try to take out a huge sum of money, I'm sure they're going to stop you or ask you questions of why you're doing this. Now, billionaires are dumping their stocks. Now, there's only one reason why people would start dumping their stocks. Now, it says, despite the 6.5% stock market rally over the last 3 months, a handful of billionaires are quietly dumping their American stocks, and fast. George Soros recently sold nearly all of his bank stocks, including shares of J.P. Morgan, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs. Between the three banks, Soros sold more than 1 million shares. Now, it is very likely that these professional investors are aware of a specific research that points toward a massive market correction as much as 90%. Now, they're saying that something is going to happen and these people are starting to sell their stocks. And they go on to say that it starts with a reckless strategy of the Federal Reserve to print massive amounts of money, which we see out of thin air, to stimulate the economy, which is going on right now. These funds haven't made it into the markets and the economy yet, but it is a mathematical certainty that once the dam breaks and this money passes through the reserves and hits the markets, inflation will surge. Once you hit 10% inflation, a 10-year Treasury bond loses about half their value, and about 20%, and by 20%, and any value is all but gone. Interest rates will increase dramatically at this point, and what will cause real estate values to collapse? And the stock market will collapse as a consequence of these other problems. Now, what I did was I put this graph that I made when I first started X22report.com, and it is 1929, 2008, and 2013, and you can see the patterns of the stock market. You can see when they all hit the same high, everyone was talking about how great the stock market, the economy's fine, and then boom, it just crumbled. And we're getting to that point right now. So if you go on to X22report.com, go on to today's report, you will see this graph, and I split them up to 3 separate graphs, and you can see what it looks like. And it just looked like a big rise up, and then it hits the point, boom, straight down. And it looks like we're following the same exact pattern. Now, in Delaware, it looks like Markell signs a gun background check bill into law. Now, again, all these laws that they're signing, they're null and void according to the Second Amendment, because the people have the right to bear arms, which bear means to carry. Arms is weapons, ammunition, and armaments. Armament, the definition of armaments is military weapons, and infringe means to limit or undermine. So shall not limit. If you want to, carry weapons, shall not limit. So basically, it's completely unconstitutional. And according to the Supreme Court hearing of Marbury versus Madison, that any law that is repugnant to the Constitution is void, and that courts as well as other departments are bound by that instrument. And the definition of repugnant is incompatible or inconsistent. So the laws that they're placing on the books right now are incompatible and inconsistent because the right to bear arms shall not be limited or undermined, and the word that the forefathers used is infringed upon. But it is completely null and void. Now, Israel is complaining that Russia is going to be selling weapons to Syria, and of course Israel doesn't like this, and they warned, that a deal is imminent to sell advanced ground-to-air missile systems to Syria, weapons that would significantly boost the regime's ability to stave off intervention into civil war. Now, we all know that the rebels that are fighting over it in Syria are not Syrians. They're hired mercenaries that are fighting to take over Assad because he is not trading oil in the petrodollar. There is no central bank there, and they want him out. It's the same reason for Iran, why they want to go into Iran also. If you look, I have it on my site and articles on the side. All wars are banker wars. This article is written by Michael Rivera, and he goes into depth explaining how each war has started and why each war has begun, and it's always the same reason. It's the central bankers, and they're always the ones when they feel threatened or they want to implement their central bank into another country. This is what they do. The United States right now is losing its foothold of each country using the US dollar as their reserve currency. Australia, China, Russia, India, Brazil, Iran, Syria, all of these countries are not trading in the US dollar anymore. They're bypassing it. And basically what's happening is the US is trying to invade all of these places to stop this from happening, but there's just too many countries that are doing this, and there's no way that we can stop everyone from doing this. So inevitably, the dollar will eventually stop being the reserve currency. I mean, the writing is on the wall. You can see it. The other countries are telling us that this is what's happening, but central banks, they will go down fighting and bring us into wars that we should never be in. I mean, if you really think about it, why are we in Syria? What is our reasoning? We're trying to help the rebels? We're trying to help the people? You know what? Let Syria worry about Syria. Instead of sending over $100 million of aid, why don't you use the $100 million of aid here in America? But you see what they've done here, so people don't think we need it here, is they massaged the calculations of GDP, unemployment, inflation, so the American people think that we're on the fast track to the good times, so we don't need that money. So this allows them to send money over to different places. If unemployment was, being reported as 15%, the Americans would be up in arms going, wait, we have our own problems here. But as you can see from CNN New York Times polls, people are not really interested in Syria. We're not interested in going to war. We're not interested in being over there. We have no reason to be over there. The only reason we're over there is because of the central bankers who want to impose and get rid of the leaders who are not trading in the US dollar anymore. That is the only reason. Now, talking about cyber attacks, there was a record-breaking bank heist, and they used this scheme, which was sort of a cyber attack. They called it the Unlimited Operation, and they were able to steal money from ATMs all over the world, totaling $5 million. And basically, they did this, and they hacked into different banks. They withdrew the money from ATMs all over the world, and they continually did this. And it looks like they finally got caught, and it's a huge crime ring. So I mean, you could just see what's going on today with all of this. But on another note about cyber attacks, there was a attack on ReputationChanger.com. They're reporting that they were hit today, and it took their site down temporarily. So, I'm thinking that we might see something on Friday because the DHS is also, they're talking about, how threatening it is and how they need money for cyber warriors. So this would be a very good chance of them, doing something so they can get funded and show people, see, this is why you need us. And someone brought up a very good point, and this was on the YouTube channel, Disaster Preparedness, said, maybe Syria took down their internet so they wouldn't be blamed for any attacks on May 7th, which is a good point. I mean, if you think about it, that could be a reason they went down. I mean, so far we're not really getting any type of real answer of why this happened. And I haven't seen a really good explanation of what happened. Now, in California, New York, and D.C., they're looking to ban 3D printed guns. Not really surprised about this because it's always those states that are on the verge of collapse, that have already passed these draconian, null and void gun laws, and they're looking to ban 3D printed guns. And it also looks like they're asking the guy who created the 3D gun to hand in all his information on how he created it. And the government wants all the information. And they cited some laws, which, it says the commodity jurisdiction law, and they just want him to turn all his files in and everything that he has, which I don't understand how this falls into that jurisdiction whatsoever. But I'm going to look into that to see what these laws actually are. Now, Biden wants to make a tax on violent media. So he doesn't see any legal reason why we can't do this. So basically, taxing something that's violent. So no rights, and this is what this goes on to say, no rights are absolute. All rights are subject to government intrusion and have limits. That's the left-wing battle cry when it comes to gun control. We need common sense restrictions on the Second Amendment. Basically, what they're saying is they just want to do away with the Constitution and let us just tax everything. And we've seen this in the past. When the government starts to take away our rights and start to tax everything, we're headed towards the end game. This is how it happens. We've seen this in the past. We've seen during the revolution what has happened. They took away the people's freedoms, their rights, and they started to tax everything. News, if you got a letter, if you got a publication, taxes on teas, taxes on everything that they did. And this article goes on to say, if we honestly have a vice president that thinks we can tax movies, music, literature, and yes, even video games based on their content, we are treading on the slipperiest of slopes. And it should scare the bejesus out of anyone who values their free speech. This is going far beyond the Second Amendment now. I mean, the warning signs of everything that we've seen the government do, the NDAA, the Patriot Act, the Miranda exception rule, all of these things are telling us that something is coming, and something that's not going to be good for anybody. And basically on May 7th, during these cyber attacks that they said we were going to have, President Obama signed back into law the National Emergency Act, which was signed by FDR back in 1933. And it's been signed into law every year since then by every president. and he just renewed it. And basically, the reasoning is we're in a state of emergency because of Syria, really. So, you know, you could just see that this is never ending. Now, there's a hearing going on about the Boston bombing, and they want to know about the Homeland Defense System that failed. Really, I mean, come on, Congresspeople. It's time to wake up. Open your eyes. Get out of your little money grubbing box and work for the people, which they don't. Homeland Security was not set up to detect terrorists. They have no idea what is going on. Homeland Security is Obama's private army to keep control of the American people. The fusion centers are to spy on Americans. They are labeling groups. They are tracking groups. They track the Occupy Wall Street group and label them as domestic terrorists. They have armed themselves with billions of rounds of ammunition. They bought 2,700 tanks. They have drones. They control the internet. They have the mobile kill switch, and they probably have the internet kill switch. They have nothing to do with terrorists. Their terrorist alert system shows nothing all the time. When the Boston bombing was happening, no clue about terrorists because they were part of that. They have nothing to do with terrorists. These people in government have no idea what is going on. And if you ever listened on TV to the hearing and what they say, it's jibber jabber. I mean, I'm in the technology field, and when I hear managers talk, I call it manager babble. You ever hear a manager talk and they say absolutely nothing, and they just babble on, and you walk away and you're like, he just said nothing to me. It's the same thing with politicians. It's politician babble, and they just keep talking and talking and talking, and nothing is coming out of their mouth. Nothing of value. They keep going in circles. They never get to a point. They never want to say anything. It's ridiculous with all of these people. And basically they went on to say, why didn't the Department of Homeland Security notify the FBI and the Boston JTTF, Joint Terrorism Task Force, when its system pinged that Tamerlan had left America for Russia on his way to Dagestan? Lieberman asked. The whole point of the fusion centers and the Joint Terrorism Task Force is to share information, McCall said. The whole idea of information not shared defies why we even have a Homeland Security Department in the first place. See, this is where they're confused. They believe what the Obama administration tells them. They never dig deeper. They never ask questions. They ask a question, but they never go anywhere with it. They're satisfied with the blah, 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 blah information that Janet Napolitano tells them, and they never dig deeper and deeper and deeper and find the truth. This is our problem. Nobody wants to find the truth. Nobody wants to find out what's really going on. Now, I saw this interesting article, and I think this is pretty good. 3 things to know in the event of a martial law. The first thing, and one of the most important things, is do not panic. Panic serves 2 things. First, it is used as a tool to catch you off guard, and it also instills a sense of false hope. And the second thing is be organized. When we hear that the gangs are down the streets looting houses, or that the socialist government is knocking down doors, we have to be prepared in such a way as to give them something, but not the things we need to survive. What we will not give up is our water, food, and firearms. Find a place to hide the firearms. There are several hideaway tubes on the internet that are waterproof that can be purchased at a decent price. They are placed in the ground, and you can hide all your stuff, your food, your firearms, and things like that. And the third one is try to have a network of people around you that you trust. A phone call from someone who is 5 minutes away saying they are headed your way could be a lifesaver. In bad situation, 5 minutes could mean the difference between freedom and living in a FEMA camp. So, these are the different things. I thought this was an interesting article just to throw out there. And basically, we all need to be prepared, and I've always said this, and you've heard this from many other places and not just here, but we all need to be prepared with our food, water, and those are and firearms. And you're going to protect everything, gold and silver also, medication. We're going to protect everything with our weapons. And we have every right to do so. The Constitution gives us that right, but we are born with these rights, and that's what the Constitution tells us. Now, Judge Napolitano came out. I don't know why I have a problem saying his name sometimes. It's the same name as Janet, but I don't know, for some reason. Came out with an article, Why We Should Mistrust the Government. Now, I'm not going to read the whole article, but I thought the last paragraph was very interesting. The government that has come about by self-rule derives its powers from the consent of the governed, because the tyranny of the majority can be as dangerous to freedom as the tyranny of a madman. All use of government power should be challenged and questioned. Government is essentially the negation of liberty. If we fail to challenge government at every turn, there'll be no liberty remaining for us to defend when the government tries to negate it. Now, basically, the government is trying to stop you from questioning what they're doing. Just like you saw the sheriff in Palm Beach in Florida who, report the government haters. In New York, report the people that have guns. Report the people that, are saying bad things about the government. We can see this happening all over the place. But our right to question the government is in the Constitution. We have freedom of speech. And our founding fathers told us, question everything. Question what the government's doing, because the government is supposed to work for the people. And if they're not working for the people, they need to go. They're not working for themselves. They're not working for corporations. They're not working for their special interest groups. They're working for us, the people, each individual. And if they're not doing the things that are in our best interest, it's time to remove them. And if they're controlled by the central bankers, it's time to remove them. So I just wanted to go over some of the warning signs that our founding fathers have been telling us. And some of these, when I read them, I was just like, wow, this just explains everything. So here's some of them. We must not let our rulers load us up with perpetual debt. We must make our selection between economy and liberty, or profusion and servitude. That was Thomas Jefferson. When the people find that they can vote themselves money, that will herald the end of the republic. Benjamin Franklin. And here's something interesting from John Adams. America must resist the temptation to go abroad in search of monsters to destroy. For if America was to take this path, Adams feared, America would find itself involved in all the wars of interest and intrigue, of individual envy and ambition, which assume the colors and usurp the standard of freedom. What is more, Adams warned the fundamental maxims of American foreign policy would invariably change from liberty to force. The tragic consequence of this, Adams declared, was that America might become the dictatress of the world. She would no longer be the ruler of her own spirit. And finally, Thomas Jefferson. Our rulers will become corrupt, our people careless. The time for fixing every essential right on a legal basis is now while our rulers are honest and ourselves united. From the conclusion of this war we shall be going downhill. It will not then be necessary to resort every moment to the people for support. They will be forgotten, therefore, and their rights disregarded. They will forget themselves, but in the sole faculty of making money, and will never think of uniting to effect a due respect for their rights. The shackles, therefore, which shall not be knocked off at the conclusion of this war, will remain on us long, will be made heavier and heavier, till our rights shall revive or expire in a convulsion. We wait the inevitable convulsion. Only two questions remain. Will we fight to revive our rights, or will we meekly submit as our last remaining rights expire, surrendered to the courts and perhaps to a new world order? Everyone, they've told us and they have warned us that the government, central bankers, would be doing this in the future. That they fought for the rights, but they knew as time passed people would forget, and eventually our rights would be chipped away, and it's the perfect opportunity when the economic collapse comes to remove all of our rights. And the question does remain, what do we do at this point? Do we just sit and say, oh well, that's the end? Because when I first awoke, I thought, oh, I just had to get prepared for the economic collapse. I want to make sure I had money, food, water, and weapons to protect my family. But now I'm thinking, and I'm thinking further and bigger. Yes, that is still important. But what happens after the collapse? What happens when they declare martial law? They suspend the Constitution, or they tell us we're getting rid of the Constitution, and all the people are begging for food, water, supplies, places to live, and the leaders tell us the only way we can do this is to get rid of the Constitution and let us just do what we have to do. Most of the people are going to say, okay, sure, if you'll make my life better. But what we have done is we've just thrown out our Constitution, our rights. So if you look at this in a big picture, we just can't be worried about, the financial aspect of what's going on here, because in the end, that will not matter. Our founding fathers are telling us this. They are warning. These are the warning signs. Thomas Jefferson is telling us, yes, we had this war, but the same problems still exist. And when people forget and time passes, it's true. The shackles become heavier and heavier. The government, central bankers see this. They know what's going on. They know their system is failing. And this is their opportunity to get rid of everything that we have today. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank you for listening. Again, be safe, be well, be prepared. Thank you.